10 years ago in 2008, before I had an interest in videos, film, photography, or even the slightest thought of ever making a YouTube channel one day, my grandmother and I set out on a trip. The trip involved going to Atlanta, and to be more precise, Kennesaw, Georgia, which is near Atlanta. The reason for the trip was so I could see the two famed steam locomotives from the Great Locomotive Chase, which occurred during the Civil War in 1862. The locomotives, 440 American types, general in Texas, are permanently on display in Kennesaw, and that was the reason we went, was so I could see them. This was back in 2008, remember? So, this has been 10 years ago now. Now, in 2018, which now marks 10 years since that first trip, my grandmother and I are returning to Kennesaw to see both locomotives. In the time span from 2008 to 2018, we've been to plenty of other places since Kennesaw. Alaska, Pennsylvania, Canada, the Bahamas. This trip that we took to Kennesaw 10 years ago is what started all of that. And since that first trip, not only have I been to plenty of other places, but also I've gained an interest in film, photography, and in 2016, I started my YouTube channel, which has prospered since. Now moving on to the photos you see. The first two shows me in front and beside the locomotive General when I was 8 years old. The two photos that are after them show me standing in front and beside the Texas 10 years ago in 2008 when I was 8 years old. The reason for this trip now is to see how both of the engines look or have changed in the 10 years since I saw them. The Texas is going to be the one I know of that will have the most change. So that's going to be very neat to see. So I really hope y'all enjoy this video. And this marks 10 years since my grandmother and I's first trip together. Preserver 2000 here, back again doing another video here, guys. Welcome to the Atlanta History Center, and as promised, here is the Texas 10 years after I first saw it in 2008. As you can see, it looks far more beautiful now than it did when I last saw it, and so they did a great job restoring the engine in Spencer, which is where I've been there. But as you can see, they now have it so you can walk up into the cab of it, which is nice. So I'm going to do that because when I last saw it at the old Cyclorama building, for one thing, it was in the main lobby. Now, it's out here to where you can see it. I'm glad to see it. I have it on wide angle so I can get the whole engine in the shot. I know where I'm just getting locations for where I can photograph the thing. But yeah, this thing is beautiful. It's actually far better now than when I last saw it. But yeah, so this is basically Okay, so from what I can see, it's been restored to its 1886 appearance, which was nice. And so, of course, it was built in... Oh, wow. So they pretty much have figured out how old each part is. So, well, this thing was practically 1880s, the cab, steam dome, steam boiler, sand dome, all that was installed in the 1870s. Steam chest and cylinders, 1880s. Bell stand, 1856. So that's really a structural frame from 1856. So really, there's only two pieces that are over 100 years old at this point. But yeah. So obviously they had to replace quite a few things since they were... I'm alright. Oh, there's the nameplate. They had the nameplate still on it. And there's when they were restoring it in Spencer. And my grandmother and I have been to Spencer, North Carolina. We went back in, I think, 2016, I think, if I remember correctly. Because 611 was there when we went. The Texas wasn't. But they didn't let you in the cab, and so I'm glad that they... Well, yeah, that is true. Well, no, I would have had that Sony camera then. Well, I'm glad that they allow you in here now. So as you can see, they've got coal in here, so I think it would have been wood at the time when the engine was first run. So you can see here's the engineer's side of the locomotive. You've got the Johnson bar here. Now bear in mind, when this thing would have been running, there wasn't a thing known as dynamic brakes. So that probably would have been installed later, but I'm guessing they would have removed that now. Then there's the fireman's side. There's a throttle lever there. I'm guessing they've got the valves covered and whatnot. Some of them. You have the main steam gauge there, and of course here is the inside of the firebox. I guess the tubed boiler must have, yeah, they would have had the tubed boiler there. What, does it move? Doesn't. Good. In case you want to get an idea as to how big or how much space you'd have in here, I'm standing at the very back of the tender, so there you go. That's literally the size of the boiler. It's a bit bigger on camera, but I'm actually taller than the actual boiler itself. My hand is here on the thing. But, yeah. That would have been for the whistle there, and then there's the bell. Yeah, I'm glad that they now let you inside the thing. They didn't let you do that 10 years ago. And I think now with the General, they've done the same thing. Of course, I could be wrong. So yeah, I'm going to end the video here. Yeah, they have the first milepost marker for the Western and Atlantic right here. So I didn't realize they had that until now. Glad they recovered this. You can see the old railroad's emblem there, Western and Atlantic. The "and" is sort of faded out, same with the W and the A. But yeah, that's pretty much it. So we got done filming the Texas, and so here is the General, which was captured by Andrews and his raiders. And as you can see, it has changed little in the 10 years since I was last here. But I'm glad that they've left it unchanged. Now this engine is different from the Texas in the fact that it was restored and run during the Civil War's 100th anniversary. And they made some modifications to the engine, including adding a few new valves and dynamic brakes, which you can see those two levers there, those were added when the engine was restored back in the 60s. There's a silent film that depicts the engine when it was restored. But overall, it's original, which is nice. And of course, as you can tell, they changed the coupler out because they had a passenger car that they brought to accompany the engine back when they ran it. And I know they converted it to burn oil too, and I think they made it have a dummy wood pile so that could still look original. But as to whether or not it could probably run again, that's probably slim because, well, it's virtually isolated. So I'm glad that they've at least kept it in good condition here. It may not run again, but at least it had a brief stint back in the 60s, which is good. And I'm just going to do a complete walk around of the engine here. So we're on the engineer's side, and now the fireman's side of the engine is visible. So I was coming up here to record just the engines, so yeah. I think, was this the car that was used? No, but that's what that one would have looked like. So yeah. 10 years and the general hasn't changed, and it's like I said in the opening audio commentary that I made specifically for this. I knew that the general would not have as much change done to it, but the Texas would have had the most change, as you probably will be able to see in my video I did of it. And there's a few other tidbits I may include that don't relate, but you know, yeah, I'll include them. Because I do want to do a walk through this museum because they have artifacts from the machine works where this engine was built. So, all these stairs and remind me of what I have at my high school. They have the exact same foot treading. But up here, guys, now you can get a full overhead shot of the engine. And now the museum itself has changed a lot. They've updated all the displays and the exhibits. In the 1960s, when the engine was restored, they made it have a dummy wood pile, but now they've replaced it with real wood, which is nice. But you can see inside the cab there, it's going to be blurry due to the light and the camera's pixelation, so forgive me for that. But you can see there's the engineer's side. You can see the throttle, the Johnson bar, and the old steam gauge there in the middle. But as you can tell, they had to do a lot of more work to get the engine running. Because as far as I know, the Texas last ran in 1907 or 1906. That depends on when it was retired. But the General last ran 50 years ago, during the Civil War's centennial. So, yeah. That's pretty much it for this video relating to just the General. And I will see y'all later. Right then, so now that you guys have seen what the two engines look like now on film, I also have taken the liberty of photographing both engines now, and to show how they look now, 10 years later. There's 5 photographs, 2 of the Texas, 2 of just the General, and then there's one with me standing beside the General 10 years later, after I first saw it. I'll include both a photo of me in 2008 standing beside it, and then the one that shows me standing beside it this year. I hope you guys have enjoyed the video, and I wish all of y'all a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. And Ellaby, thank you very much for making these 10 years the greatest of my life.